So, you want to be a dungeon master. Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about being a dungeon master playing or running 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons in Adventures League. So, you've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for a while, and maybe you've decided you want to run a table. Or perhaps whatever the location you play at on a weekly basis is getting more players and they need a new dungeon master, and they've come and said to you, would you like to DM? Today we're going to talk about what you need to DM and why you should go ahead and give it a try because honestly it's really, really simple and a lot of fun. The first things that you're going to need to run a table are a player's handbook, a monster manual, and a module to run. And we'll go over each of those items real quick. Also, the nice to have or should have items would be a Dungeon Master's Guide, and then not necessary would be miniatures and a grid map for combat. And we're going to discuss each of these items and explain the ones that you have to have and the ones that are nice to have and why it's nice to have them. So first is a player's handbook. That one's pretty obvious. It's got most of your spells. It's got all of the items in it that you need to create characters, basic rules on character generation, all the things that you need to run a game. Now, you can run a game successfully just having the player's handbook and the monster manual. You don't need the DMG, but the player's handbook is absolutely necessary. You want to be able to reference rules for spells. You're going to have monsters, and let's say you're not fully familiar with all the spells. A monster has a list of spells that they need to cast. You're going to go to the player's handbook to verify what you need to do to run those spells. Just as a player does something and you think it might sound a little wonky, you can look at the player's handbook, see what the subclass allows them to do, and it allows you to adjudicate the game. And that is part of your job as the dungeon master, is adjudicating the game, make sure people aren't doing things that are not legal or don't exist in the game. And that's what the manual is for. The second must-have item is a monster manual. Now, it's really obvious why you need this. You're going to be running combat, and in combat, your players will encounter monsters. The monster manual has most of the monsters that they will encounter in any of your campaigns, dungeons, or anything else. It has their statistics, how they attack, how many attacks they have, what spells are available, their immunities, their resistances, everything that you need to run those creatures when you're in combat with your player characters is in the monster manual. So that is a must-have item. The third must-have item is an adventure for your players to play in. Your options are you can run an expeditions module from seasons 1 through 7, or if you're viewing this after season 7, whatever the current season that we're in. The other option is to run a hardcover, and that would be from Hoard of the Dragon Queen through what, while we're filming now, would be the current module of Tomb of Annihilation. If you're going to be running and want to run a current module, you should go with whatever is current, because a lot of players are going to come in and want to play the current module. Good example is when Curse of Strahd came out. People were really excited about that. They came to the store, and that's what they really wanted to run. That's what they expected. Oh, you guys running Strahd? Are you running Strahd? Some tables were running older modules, some tables were running Strahd. Any new tables, I always try to have running the current module because that's usually what people are looking to play. They're very excited to play the new content. That's why they're coming in. So with our current module, the current module is Tomb of Annihilation. Your other option, and what I might even recommend if you're a new dungeon master and don't want to run a sandbox type module, you're not comfortable having to rein your characters in or letting them run wherever they want. It's kind of like herding cats sometimes in one of these open modules. You may want to run the Yawning Portal module. And this is why I would recommend that. It is an old school dungeon crawl. Those things are easy to run, they're fun to play and fun to run, and your characters can't go off reservation. They're not going to run around like cats that you've got to keep pushing and prodding to get back into place. Their options are going to be, how do we get in the door to get into the first thing? Now, do we go straight, left, or right? That's it. It's super, super simple, and it's awesome for a new DM to run. It makes your life a lot easier. And like I said, there will be some monsters that may not be in the monster manual, but the module will have those at the end of the book. So there, it'll be rare, but you might have a half a dozen different creatures that are in there. There might even be some NPCs that you need to be able to role play, and they'll have information because those NPCs might be designed to go with the characters. Every bit of information you need will be at the end of your module. But again, the current module at the time of this filming is Tomb of Annihilation. That's a little more difficult to run because it is a sandbox and they can run anywhere in the Chult, or go one back and run Tales from the Yawning Portal. Yawning Portal is nice because it should take you a long time to get through it. It'll give you a lot of playtime, and it'll level you, I believe, from like level 1 to 17. I'd have to look to make sure, but it gives the characters, the players, a long adventure to run through multiple dungeons. One of the beauties of it is it does end on one of the classic dungeons of all times, written by Gary Gygax, the Tomb of Horrors, and it's an awesome module to run. It's lethal, and you should just have fun with that and prepare your players that there's a good chance that they could die at any time in that. And that's the one you need to prepare them for, because they may be attached to characters. They need to be willing to say, yep, they may die. But they should have fun doing it. Like I said, it's a classic dungeon, and you just have to have a lot of fun playing it. All right, the fourth thing that you probably should have but don't have to have is the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, the Dungeon Master's Guide is very nice to have. If you're a new DM, it gives you tips on running a campaign. It tells you how, let's say a module is written for 4 to 5 players and you have 7 at a table. If you just give enough creatures that the module provides, that's designed for 4 or 5 players. They're going to steamroll it because they have too many players in there. So to give you how to level up encounters, it gives you magic items that you may find. If you're not sure what different magic items are, that's your reference. It gives you everything you need that the Player's Handbook doesn't have to run as a dungeon master. So it's not a must-have thing, and there may be somebody there that'll let you look at it if you need to look at the DMG for potions and stuff, but eventually you should get a Dungeon Master's Guide, because if you're going to be a Dungeon Master, you need that for running your tables, and you may even decide to go and run your own campaign at home, and you'll need that. There won't be anybody there to loan one to you. Now, one thing I didn't mention that you probably should have is a Dungeon Master's screen. You put that in front of you. It screens your books, your monsters, your stats, the hit points left on them from the players. And players are going to look. We're all curious individuals. We all like to see what we're up against. You want that behind there. And you also want that to be able to roll your dice behind. I am going to readily admit, if I'm having an awesome night as a DM, which is never good for the players, and I'm rolling tons of crits, I would rather be able to fudge the crits and not kill everybody in the party just because I'm having stupid luck, because they're not going to have fun. There are times that I use my screen to fudge my rolls to protect the players from a total party kill, because you'll get crazy luck where you're rolling crits and high numbers, you're hitting every time, you're doing max damage almost, and it's no fun for them. And honestly, for me as a dungeon master, it's no fun for me to kill my table. You know, I don't want them to not want to play anymore or just be upset because stupid luck has killed them. They're going to have the same stupid luck where they're rolling nothing but bad numbers. But I have the control to be able to not murder a whole party, and it's a personal option that I take, that I choose not to TPK tables. Now, there are times if it's an experienced table and they're doing really stupid stuff and they deserve a TPK, I'm not going to pull the punches. I may even take the screen up and roll it and let them see what's happening. But a Dungeon Master screen is nice because you can have your stats, your tracker, and everything behind that you see how many hit points are left on the creatures they're attacking, the actual stat blocks, everything that you're running. They shouldn't even be. But the screen is a nice thing to have because it protects the items that you need to have behind as a dungeon master, that are your stats and things that most players shouldn't know, as well as you can track your hit points, and they shouldn't be seeing how many hit points a creature has, especially when you may have to bump hit points because you've got too many people at the table for the current adventure. So you raise the hit points on the creatures instead of putting more in. You have different options of what you can do. You can max out the hit points according to how many dice and the modifier is. You don't have to throw extras in. You just make them tougher to kill. But that all comes with experience. You decide what you're going to do with each encounter to make it equal to the number of players at your table. But I'm digressing, so let's move on. The next thing, what I said was a fifth thing, which actually is a sixth, that you may want to consider getting are miniatures and a mat that has a map on it. Now, you really have two options for combat. The first one is Theater of the Mind. In Theater of the Mind, there are no miniatures, there's no map. You tell players, you describe the room, you tell them the size, and you let them run from there. Now, the plus side is it lets people imagine, be creative, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the argument for Theater of the Mind. But the downside of Theater of the Mind, in my opinion, is it allows players to try to fudge things. Like you may have an AoE spell. They say, I drop a fireball and hit all of them. Well, if they're spread out so they're so far apart the fireball can't hit them, you're just going to have a debate over what's going on, and some players will argue with you. Now, if you have a map and miniatures, and everything is mapped out, and they have to look at that, they can see if you've got a 20-foot box worth of, or 20-foot radius, this is all they can hit. And they can't hit everybody if you play tactically and spread out. So the great advantage of the map and miniatures is there's no argument about what can or can't be hit. The other thing, and what I see a lot of players that I play with, they really appreciate that, is a lot of them like to bring miniatures that represent their character. I mean, with places like Hero Forge, things like that, they'll design their own miniature that looks like what they see their character to look like, and they want to bring that with them and play on the table. As a dungeon master, you don't have to have miniatures that represent every creature on the table. You just don't. For a long time, I carried a big box of miniatures, but I would default to everything was a skeleton if it was medium-sized, and that's what I put out, because I got tired of hunting for all the different miniatures. And then the 2x2s, I had certain ones, the 3x3s, and all that. At this point, what I use, I have a 3D printer. I printed pawns, like I have a set of white pawns numbered 1 through 9. And if I have 9 creatures, I lay them out, and I know exactly which ones to write down on my tracker while I'm reducing hit points as they take damage. I know who's attacking what, and it's very simple. I have white, black, gray, silver. I've got like 5 sets of the 1 through 9 1 inches. I've got 4 sets of 2x2s, 1 through 4. I've got 4 sets of 3x3s in different colors, and I have just 4 4x4s because there's rarely going to be more than 1 or 2 of those on the table. But that makes it real easy because I've got a plastic bag with a bunch of basically coin size or coin thickness things with numbers on them that I printed, and those are my monsters. The players are using their miniatures. They all have their own things that some are custom painted, some are just the whites that they get from like Hero Forge, or if they buy from Reaper or whatever. They have miniatures that they think represents their character, and they really enjoy playing that way. So it's really up to you. If you want to play with miniatures and a map, it helps you strategically and tactically to be able to see exactly what's happening. There's no argument about where AoE spells hit and how many it hits. Or you can play Theater of the Mind and just wing it and have a good time that way. There are no rules when it comes to that. I mean, as far as Adventures League, you can play a Theater of the Mind table. You can play with miniatures. A lot of players are going to show up and they want to play miniatures. So it's just up to you. But if you do use miniatures, keep it cheap. And if you want to keep it really portable, you can look on Amazon, I think, and they'll have a thing called the Pathfinder Flip Map. And it folds down to an 8.5 by 11 sheet and opens up to a nice big map, and it's big enough for most combat you're going to have. And it's erasable, so I usually take a wet erase so that people's hands don't do it, and a bottle of water to spray it off, or you can use a dry erase and a towel. It doesn't really matter. But it makes it real easy. You draw your rooms real quick. You can have your maps and everything set up, and you're good to go. But really, that's all you need as far as materials to DM. Plus your dice and your common sense things that you already know you're going to have. Now, one other item that I can throw in there that might be nice to have, you need something to track initiative order. So you can either just bring paper and constantly be writing that down. I have an initiative tracker that is magnetic. I think it's Pathfinder branded, but it doesn't matter because it's just a bunch of little magnet strips, and you write down the name, the initiative order, flip them around, and there you go. There's your initiative order, and on the side there's a nice big space for me to put down the hit points of each of the monsters. And I track it that way. I erase it when I'm done, and then we go to the next combat. Another option, I've seen people bring like Surface pads or iPads or stuff like that, and they track it that way on their iPad, writing in the initiative order, and they're good to go. So it's just up to you, but you always, very basic, bring pencil and paper so you can track initiative order, and that's it. So those are all the items that are must-haves and probably should-haves and plan to get later, as well as nice to have, but you don't have to have them. Now the other thing that I want to throw in there, you may be like, I don't know, I'm not good enough, I don't know enough. Everybody starts somewhere as a DM. I mean, when I started back in the day, Dungeons and Dragons was brand new. So one of us had to volunteer to be the DM and learn the game. Everybody else had their player's handbooks. They sat down, we figured out how to build a character. And this was back in first edition D&D. In fact, even before that, we played Chainmail. So there was nobody to sit down and mentor us for being a dungeon master. We just sat down and learned the system and played. If you're a player and you played for a while, 6 months, a year, if you've played a long time and somebody's asking you to play, it means they have confidence in your ability. Don't be afraid to take the seat behind the screen. You're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to enjoy it. Trust me. It's a lot of fun. I get a lot of pleasure seeing the people smiling and laughing while we're sitting there playing, running through the adventures, role-playing, joking around. It gives me a lot of pleasure to see that these people are learning the game, a game that I've played for decades, and I truly enjoy playing. So for you, just jump in. You're gonna enjoy it. I mean, if you enjoy playing a single character, you're gonna love the fact that you get to role play and play everything in the game that's not a player character. Everyone that they encounter, that's you role playing. Everyone that they fight, that's you. Everything that the players are going to ever run into, you are that guy, girl, monster, creature, whatever. So instead of being stuck playing one character, you have the broadest part in the game. And just remember, as a dungeon master, it's your job to facilitate those players having a good time. It's never an adversarial relationship. You're not there to kill them, you're there to facilitate the game. And I'm not saying don't kill a character. If they do something stupid, they're going to die. If they go into combat that they're not ready for or leveled up, they're probably going to die. You can work your way around it and have them get captured if you're kind, or if you play what the module says happens and it says they're going to die, they're going to die. Sometimes players simply have to accept the consequences of their actions if they play poorly. But like I said, it's your job to facilitate the game and to make it fun for the players. And I'm going to flat out say it. If your idea of fun as a DM is going to be killing players, remain a player, don't be a DM. You have no business behind the screen, period. You're there to make a game playable for other players and for them to have fun. You should be having fun, they should be having fun. Your fun should be in making them have fun. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. So that's it for today. If you decide to run a game and you're a first-time DM, put down below how it went. If you have any other ideas that maybe I left out something that you should bring along or would be helpful to DMs, put it in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe the video. Like the video, subscribe to me, or whatever. And we will see you next time. I hope you have an awesome day.